stage. Hello, everyone. All right. Well, dear friends, mentors, and fellow travelers of this extraordinary journey, before I begin, I feel compelled to really issue a small emotional advisory. I'm about to open my heart wide, and if my voice trembles or a few tears slip through, please don't be alarmed. It's not a glitch. It's just a memory surge. Reliving the past isn't easy. But don't worry, I came prepared. Advil for the pain, waterproof makeup for the drama, and tissues for the cleanup crew. So basically, I am emotionally armed and cosmetically reinforced. Now that I get that out of the way, I shall begin. So 30 years ago, I was a 17-year-old girl from Tuzla, Bosnian, with a backpack full of dreams and a heart heavy with war. Today, I stand before you as a mother, a wife, an engineer, and most importantly, a grateful human being whose life was forever changed by Bosnian Student Project. Let me take you back to 1995. The war was in its final year, but for us, it felt endless. We lived without electricity, water, or food. Shelling was constant. Fear was our daily companion. Yet somehow, we still went to school. I walked 30 minutes each morning with my friends, not knowing if I would return. We learned to read the sounds of the war like a weather forecast. A distant thump meant danger. A whoosh overhead meant we were lucky. Silence after a lunch, that meant somebody else wasn't. But even in that darkness, we clung to hope. My friend Edina and I were top students, studying by the candlelight, dreaming of escape. One summer day, we went to school to request our transcripts. We were told, the Sheikh of America is here. We thought, what? A Sheikh in Bosnia? In a war zone? We both nodded, unsure of what was happening. And there he was, Professor Tosun Bayrak. Tall, dignified, with a beard that looked like it belonged in history books. He radiated calm and strength. While others fled Bosnia, this brave man came into it. He asked me if I had permission to leave. I didn't. I ran to the secretary's office and called my mom on a crackly landline. She said, "Kid, there is no safe place here. Wherever you can go can only be better than home." Edina did the same thing. That was the moment our life changed. Professor Bayrak looked at me and asked softly, "Do you have a passport? Do you have any money?" I whispered, "No." He gave a gentle nod, and without a word, one of his traveling companions reached out into pocket and placed 200 marks into my hand. A simple gesture that felt like the opening of a door to a new life. My hands trembled as I accepted it, my heart overflowing with gratitude. That moment marked the beginning of my journey to America. What came next was one of the hardest moments of my life. Adina and I packed our entire existence into a single piece of luggage. Just a few clothes, some photos, and fragments of a life that we were leaving behind. Then came the goodbyes. At the Tuzla bus station, I hugged my mother so tightly, as if I could somehow memorize the feel of her arms. She didn't cry. She stood strong, her face calm, her eyes steady, because she knew if I broke, she would too. My father, on the other hand, wept openly. Excuse me. His tears falling onto my shoulder as he held me like he never wanted to let go. I kissed their cheeks, hugged my brother and sister, and whispered promises I wasn't sure I could keep. Around us, the station buzzed with noise, but in my heart, there was only silence and the pounding of the fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear that this might be the last time I would ever see their faces. When the bus pulled away, I pressed my forehead on the cold glass and kept my eyes fixed on them. My family, my whole world, until they became nothing, more than a blur in the distance. That image is burned in my soul. It was the moment I learned that the hope and the heartbreak can live in the same breath. Leaving Bosnia was surreal. We traveled by bus to Zagreb, Croatia. At checkpoints, soldiers inspected our documents. The tension was so thick you could slice it with a knife. We were told to duck our heads to avoid sniper fire. As we crossed into Croatia, I recall breathing the air of freedom for the first time in years. Yet that breath was heavy and mixed with emotions, relief for myself and anguish for my family still living the war. That paradox has stayed with me all my life. In Zagreb, we prepared for US visa interviews. Stressful doesn't begin to describe it. Adina's visa was initially denied. I thought, great, we survived grenades, and now bureaucracy might take us down. But she prevailed, and we flew out in batches. I flew alone, from Zagreb to Zurich, then Zurich to New York. On Swiss Air, they handed me an I-94 immigration form. I had a meltdown. I didn't know who was picking me up. I was 17, alone, and terrified. Excuse me. A kind couple from Michigan saw me crying on the airplane and stayed with me until I was safely handed off. Angels do exist, and sometimes they wear fanny packs and fly economy. Arriving in New York was like stepping into a movie. The skyline I've only seen in films was suddenly real. I had butterflies, anxiety, and all at once. I first met my host mother, a Turkish-American woman with piercing blue eyes and a heart of gold. She hugged me and said, "Welcome home." I didn't know then I would marry her brother 4 years later, with Professor Bayrak officiating the wedding. Life has a funny way of connecting dots you didn't even know existed. My host family was exceptional. They treated me like their own child. Through them and their community and fellowship of reconciliation, I met other Bosnian students, and together we formed a support system that helped ease homesickness. But dinners were hard. Eating while knowing that your family back home is starving, that's a pain no teenager should carry. Despite the emotional weight, I had to apply to colleges and take entrance exams. Professor Bayrak's wife, Jean, or as some of you might know her, Jamila, she organized weekly TOEFL and SAT sessions. These were prep sessions for all of us. She was our academic fairy godmother. And then came the season of rejection. Back then, college decisions didn't arrive in emails. You walked to the mailbox, heart pounding, hoping for that big envelope. I received countless small envelopes, each one a polite no. I started to dread the sound of the mailbox. It felt like the universe was saying, "Nice try, poor refugee." But not today. But I kept going, and I kept hoping. Then one day, a big, beautiful purple envelope from NYU arrived. I ran into the house, heart pounding. It was a full scholarship, tuition, room, board, and GPA requirement. I cried, my host family cried. I graduated magna cum laude in computer science major and math minor. Not bad for a girl who once studied by candlelight with grenades flew overhead. 1 year before graduation, I married my host mother's brother, another pair of stunning blue eyes that took my breath away. We lived in Massachusetts with our 30-pound Maine Coon cat, one-eyed cat. His name was Winky, an adopted companion with personality as bold as his size. While there, I went to graduate school. Eventually, destiny took us to the West Coast, where we lived and worked for over 20 years in San Diego, and we were blessed with 2 beautiful children and 3 cats who were absolutely certain that they own our home. Now, this past July, my 17-year-old son flew solo from Turkey to the United States. Watching him take that leap, I couldn't help but reflect. 30 years ago, at the exact same age, his mother flew solo too, though under very different circumstances. If the Bosnian Student Project hadn't existed, neither would he. His journey is a continuation of mine. And speaking of journeys coming full circle, this summer, my 13-year-old daughter, Amina, traveled to Bosnia for the very first time without me. She stayed with my family and absolutely loved the country. Walking the cobblestone streets of Sarajevo and Tuzla, tasting the food, hearing the language, it was as if a piece of her heritage came alive. But what touched me the most was hearing that she spent afternoons outside, playing hide and seek with neighborhood kids in the same town where I once ran and laughed as a child. Different alleys, different times, but the same joy, the same echoes of childhood. I could almost see my younger self hiding behind a tree, heart racing, waiting to be found. In those moments, time folded in on itself. The girl I once was and the young woman she is becoming seemed to meet in that Bosnian summer light. And then came a moment that made me smile from ear to ear. Amina met Dino Merlin in Sarajevo. Yes, the Dino Merlin. The man who is not just a singer, but the soundtrack of our youth. The voice that carried us through heartbreak and hope before, during, and after the war. When she told me, I said, "Do you even know who that is?" And she said, "Yeah, Mom, some famous guy everybody is screaming about." I thought, some famous guy? Child, that's like calling Beyonce a lady who sings. To think that my daughter, born thousands of miles away, stood and spoke face to face with the artist whose songs once echoed through war-torn streets. It felt like a bridge between generations and a reminder that music, just like memory, has no borders. Watching her fall in love with the land I once fled reminded me that even after war and exile, roots have a way of calling us home. And life has a beautiful way of weaving connections. While building a new life in San Diego, I met a young woman, Amina, from Sarajevo. What started as a chance encounter blossomed into a friendship that has thrived for over 2 decades. Through her, I've been reminded that the bonds of our shared past are not just memories. They are living bridges that carry us forward. As I reflect on my journey here today, I want to say thank you. Thank you to Professor Tosun Bayrak, who risked his life to find students in a war zone. He saw potential where others saw rubble. Though he's no longer with us, his legacy lives on in every life he touched. Thank you to Doc Hossiter and the Fellowship of Reconciliation, who believed that education could be a response to genocide and proved it. Thank you to Jean Bayrak, or Cemilane, as many of you know, who helped us navigate the academic maze with grace and patience. Thank you to my lovely host family, Yurden and Zinur Donata, who embraced me as one of their own, carried me with extraordinary warmth, and gave me the gift of free siblings. Their home was not just a place of shelter. It was a place of belonging, laughter, and unconditional support that shaped my journey in ways I will always cherish. Thank you to Aicha and Charles Ray, who helped me in the summer of 1996, helped me shop for college, and dropped me off at NYU like proud parents. Thank you to the Cherokee Order of America, Green Meadow Waldorf School, and the entire community whose generosity, hospitality, and faith made this journey possible. Not only for me, but for many Bosnian students who found refuge and support through their kindness. To my husband, Saifullah Oguz, thank you for embracing this journey with me not just as a partner, but as a steadfast companion whose love and support have grounded me through every twist and turn. Your endless love, loyalty, and strength have been my anchor. And to my parents, though you're no longer here, your love and sacrifices live with me every day. You gave me strength when the world around me was falling apart. You gave me hope when there was none. You went hungry so I wouldn't, and you taught me resilience, dignity, and faith. I'm grateful you lived to meet my son and to see the joy he brought to this world. When I became pregnant with my daughter, I wish you could have held her too. But I carry you in every embrace I give to my children. This journey began with your courage, and I will honor it for the rest of my life. And thank you to every student, every host, every volunteer who made this project a reality. You didn't just change lives, you created futures. 30 years later, I still carry Bosnia in my heart, the echoes of grenades, the taste of the cornbread, and the memory of friends who never got a chance to grow up. My best friend was only 15 when her life was taken away in Tuzla massacre. I carry her with me too. But alongside this grief, I carry the kindness of strangers, the gift of education, and the strength of community that chose hope over the despair. This is not just my story, this is our story. A story of resilience, compassion, and transformation. Thank you all for being part of it.
Thank you so much, Fatima. Now everybody take a deep breath. Thank you so much.